A warm welcome to all my viewers. This session of Tourism and Hospitality Research presents a very informative and interesting topic, which is how to write a research article. Maybe it's your first article? So let us start and learn the process. The structure of a research article, which typically follows a standardized format that helps organize the content clearly and systematically, and the specific sections of a research article, which may vary depending on the field and the journal. The general structure usually includes the following important components, which I'll be discussing in a very simple and precise language so that each one of us are in sync and we can do tourism and hospitality research. So welcome once again and let us start the session. So in this picture, as you can see, a research article is structured as per these 5 steps, starting from the introduction, then the literature review, which sometimes happens to be a part of the introduction, and then comes the methodology or methods implied, data collection, procedures, techniques, which is also known as sampling techniques, and then the analysis of data using specialized softwares like SPSS, AMOS, Smart PLS, and many more. These are some of the statistical softwares which are generally used by tourism and hospitality researchers. Of course, we will be delving into the details and the process to use them all in the upcoming videos. Later, we go to the discussion section wherein we discuss the findings as per the objectives laid down for the study. And the last part is the conclusion, which concludes the important findings, the relevance of our research, the implications, theoretical as well as practical implications of the research, the limitations of the research, and future scope of study in the same area. So this is a precise description of a structure of a research article. Now we will discuss them one by one in each of the individual slides. A research article begins with a informative, short, precise, and a technical title which emphasizes upon the research which you are going to do. An effective research title should be clear, concise, and convey the main topic along with the focus of the research, the relevance of the research, and it may also include certain key terms that are relevant to your study. The section known as abstract follows the title, and an abstract is a brief summary of the entire study in usually around 150 to 250 words. It includes the research question, methodology, the findings, and conclusion of your study. The abstract helps readers quickly understand the scope and results of the paper so that it becomes quite interesting for the readers to go ahead and explore your paper in detail. So that means abstract is like an attraction for the viewers, attraction for the audience who are going to read your paper, because it might create or break their interest in going further about reading your study. Next comes the keywords. Usually 5 to 6 keywords are recommended by journals, and these list of relevant terms or phrases help in identifying the main topic of the article and improve its discoverability in databases like Scopus, Web of Science, PubMed, etc. Of course, we'll be discussing them in detail later on. A separate video will be made on all these things. So, for now, we should understand that what are keywords and how are they helping to find out the topic of relevance for the audience through different databases, how people do search and then they land up onto your article to read it. So after defining the title, abstract and the keywords for your paper, the next important thing is the introduction, which comprises of four major parts. The first one happens to be background, which provides the context for the research, including an overview of the topic, its significance, and a review of relevant literature. The second is defining the research problem, which describes the specific problem or question your study wants to address, attempts to address. For an instance, does watching subject relevant YouTube videos have a positive impact on students' exam performance? So this could be explored as a research problem. And further, the third part, which is objectives or the hypothesis, may be laid down upon the research problem. So these objectives or hypotheses, which are framed further to clarify the objectives, to reach out to the objectives, we frame the hypothesis. A null hypothesis and an alternate hypothesis. We will discuss them in detail later on. The fourth part of the introduction is the rationale of the study, which explains why the study is important and its potential contributions, the implications, practical and theoretical implications to the field, to the industry. So that is why introduction part is really important part of a research article. The next is review of literature, which is sometimes integrated within the introduction. It is a detailed examination of previous research related to the topic, which helps in identifying the gaps or inconsistencies in the existing literature and thereby demonstrate the study's contribution. So literature review happens to be a very important part of your study, which helps you to find out the existing gaps on which you can develop your study, build your study, and frame your objectives accordingly. That makes your study a novel study, which will have better chances of being published by good journals as you are trying to give something new to the world. The methodology or methods section describes the research design, the material, participants, procedures, instruments which are used to conduct the study. This section should be detailed enough for the research to be replicated by others. Therefore, the design which describes the type of study, Example, it could be an experimental study, an observational study, a qualitative or a quantitative study. The sampling selection or the sampling technique, which might be classified into probability and non-probability sampling techniques. Then the data collection method, explain how the data was collected, what was the survey instrument or an experiment which was conducted, a observational study, interviews, case studies. So how did you collect the data? That is an important part to be mentioned in data collection. Next, after collecting the data, analysis of the data is very, very important, which details how the data were analyzed using different kind of softwares. Whether it was a quantitative study used and the software analyzed it quantitatively, or a special qualitative coding method was involved. We will discuss different quantitative and qualitative techniques in the upcoming videos. The results section presents the finding of the study in a clear manner according to the laid down objectives of your study. This is often accompanied by different kinds of tables, figures and charts which make it interesting for the reader and depict the data analysis in a pictorial form, easy to understand, beautiful form. Discussion section, it interprets the results, explaining what they mean in the context of the research question and the existing literature. The discussion section may include the interpretation of the results, analysis of how the findings answer the research question or support the hypothesis, compare with the previous research, that means how the findings relate to or differ from earlier studies, limitations of the study, which talks about any kind of limitations, shortcomings in the study design, the methodology, a constraint of funding, or any kind of a hindrance in your research. Next is the implications, which discuss the relevance of the findings of your study for theoretical and practical improvements in your field, or it may also pave ways to conduct future research. The conclusion section summarizes the main findings of the study and their significance. It often includes recommendations for future research or practical applications. So that is why conclusion has to be framed nicely and precisely. So a reader, sometimes the experienced readers would first going through your abstract and then they will read your conclusion instead of going through entire of your paper, because they want to see in a short paragraph what was your study about and what special thing did you find out, which is mentioned very much in conclusion in your own words, preferably not with any kind of in-text citations or references, because conclusion is the part which you are presenting from your side. This is the part where you can express your suggestions, your opinions, As per the study which you conducted, you provide a list of all the sources cited throughout the article, which are formatted according to a specific citation style recommended by the journal. So that is why it is important to go through the author guidelines mentioned on different journals. Some journals may ask in for a APA style, some may ask for a Harvard style, some may ask for a MLA or a Chicago or a Vancouver style. So you have to go through carefully for seeing the formatting guidelines of your paper before submitting that paper to any of the journals which you want. We will of course be discussing these formatting styles in detail with examples in the upcoming sessions. The references allows readers to trace the sources and further explore the research. So in case I'm interested in one of the in-text citations which you have mentioned in any of the sections of your paper, I might go further to explore that citation which you have mentioned, so I'll get a clear source in the references with the DOI HTTPS address, which I can click through and directly reach out to that reference in detail to find out what was done by that author and what was so important that you needed to cite it in your paper. That's why references happens to be a very important part. The acknowledgements, a section where the author may thank the individuals, the respondents, the organizations that contributed to the study. It could include the funding sources, the colleagues, the guide, the mentors, or even the people who helped you to reach out to the area where you conducted your study, people who translated your questionnaire to the local language, people who help you in any way and you think their contribution is valuable for your research, you need to mention it in the acknowledgement section. The last section is known as appendices, which is generally asked for in a dissertation or a project report. But sometimes the journals do ask in for the questionnaire, the supporting documents such as raw data, detailed calculations, the pictures of the survey, or any kind of supplementary information which proves that you actually conducted the study. So that is why you need to maintain these raw data sources, detailed calculations, questionnaires, and supplementary information. Hope this session was quite useful and informative for all the audience, and look forward to see you with a new, more informative video in the upcoming time. So stay tuned, keep watching for more. Thanks a lot.